Hello everybody, this is AK. I'm back bringing you another weekend video. I'm sure this will make some people very happy. Well, I've been spending a lot of time gaming in the last 1 week, so today I'm going to take a break and I'm going to spend more time on my other hobbies, including watching anime on YouTube, right? So, and of course, making YouTube videos, that's one of my hobbies now. So I thought, might as well make one video for this weekend. So I think it is no surprise, it's not a secret, right, that I really like DBS, OCBC and UOB as investments, right? They are reliable investments for income, right? They pay dividend. They are reliable dividend payers and consistent. They are able to and they are willing to pay us a dividend. And I also like the fact that they only pay out 50 to 60% of their earnings as dividends, and they retain the rest to grow their business, right? That's a sign of strength, right? That's a sign of strength. They are not borrowing money to pay dividends. They are not seeing their NAV decline after years and years of paying out dividends, right? Increasing dividends. In fact, their NAV has been growing, right? So that just shows you how it is important not just to look at dividend yield, but it is also important to look at earnings yield, right? So because they pay out only 50 to 60% of their earnings as dividends, and that already give us more than 5% dividend yield per year, the earnings yield is really more than 10%. Earnings yield is more than 10% per annum, right? And because of that, they are able to grow their net asset value per share, right? Assuming that the number of shares issued does not grow, right? So I really like DBS, OCBC, and UOB, and for the foreseeable future, for the next 2 years or maybe the next few years, right? Until a time when I become mentally infirm, I will be looking out for opportunities to increase my investment in the local banks, right? As and when Mr. Market goes into a depression, I'll probably be increasing my investment in the local banks, right? They are very good investments, right? Both for income and for growth, right? And this is all thanks to Singapore being Asia's de facto financial center. I mean, there used to be Hong Kong, but after what happened in Hong Kong with all the protests and what China has done to the territory and all that kind of thing, and expats fleeing the territory, and West businesses from America and Europe pulling out of Hong Kong. I mean, Hong Kong is no longer what it was once upon a time, right? So Singapore, with its political stability, with its pro-business environment, is still taking market share, right, from its competitors. And it's not just Hong Kong, we're also taking market share from Switzerland, right? Of course, it's because one of the Swiss banks collapsed, right? Credit Suisse got bought over by UBS in the end, even though UBS didn't want to do it, right? Because it was so toxic. But they did it in the end as a national service, and they got it for a song anyway. So that's the reason why UBS did it. UBS wasn't altruistic in taking over Credit Suisse. Right, so we see more family offices, ultra high net worth individuals, multinational firms, and they're moving the assets to Singapore, right? And DBS has been voted Asia's safest bank once again this year. And all three banks, DBS, OCBC, and UOB, are very safe banks. Very well run, very well capitalized, well regulated. They are all very safe banks, and they are amongst the world's, I think, top 10 safest banks. Right? It's not just in Asia, but in the whole world as well. Our banks are in the top 10, if not, or maybe top 20. All right, safest banks. And so, when do we invest in the banks? I mean, wait for a market crash, then buy more. Okay, that seems like, oh, that's a natural thing to do, but the market crashes come once in a while, right? It doesn't happen in a predictable manner, right? So it's called market timing, right? So if we're going to keep 100% of our money in cash just to wait for the next market crash, if the crash doesn't come for the next 10 years, for example, and our money would have lost out on the opportunity to receive meaningful dividends in all those years, right? So that's why I say it's important to stay invested, and but still have a war chest ready to wait for opportunities when the market goes into a depression. Right. And while waiting, there are times when we can buy or invest in the banks at prices which are considered not very cheap, but fair. Right. Not very cheap, but fair. Right. So what would be considered fair prices? What would we consider fair prices? Right. And this one will be something that is very subjective, right? And everyone would have an opinion, right? And so we use like price to book, P ratio, that kind of thing. And of course, we look at price to book, we say that OCBC and UOB are cheaper because they're trading at around 1.2 times book compared to DBS trading at 1.7 times book, that kind of thing. So buy OCBC and UOB and ignore DBS? Well, not really, because DBS has a more impressive ROE, which I've argued before, justifies the higher premium to book value. And another way we can look at this is just like purely on numbers, right? At a 5-year average. So if you look at Singapore banks, right, the banking sector, you look at the 5-year average, says let's say PE ratio, right? So the 5-year average PE ratio for the Singapore banking sector is about 11 times PE. 11 times PE, right? 5-year average. Then, so if you look at it that way, the average being 11 times, then OCBC and UOB right now, they are trading at 9-point-something times PE ratio, less than 10 times, lower than 10 times PE ratio. And DBS is trading at closer to 11 times PE ratio. I mean, it's not quite 11 times, but it's above 10 times PE ratio. So if you compare the 5-year average, right, then yes, even that would tell you OCBC and UOB are giving you more bang for your buck. They are trading at below the 5-year average PE ratio for the Singapore banking sector, right? Then people say, oh, but I want to buy it when it's really cheap, You say when it crash, I buy, but when it crash, I don't know the crash price can buy or will it go lower? That kind of thing, right? So then if you look at the 5-year history for the Singapore banking sector, the lowest it went to in terms of PE ratio was around 8.5 times, right? 8.5 times. That's the average, around 8.5 times. So that happened some time, I can't remember which year it was, but it happened, right? So then you can use it as a guide, right? Maybe 8.5 times PE ratio, I buy, right? And of course, I did say in the podcast with Fifth Person also that, when the bank stocks are trading at less than 1 times book value, just whack, right? Because you are basically buying money, right? So if the bank is selling to you as stocks are selling at 0.9 times book, basically are paying 90 cents for $1, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? Because the bank is basically made of money. Right, so that's another way. But if you want to look at P ratio, then the average is 5 year is for banking sector 11 times. The lowest it went to was like 8.5 times in the last 5 years, and now OCBC and UOB, they are about 9.4 times or 9.5 times P ratio. So then if there's a 10% pullback in price, that is a fair price to pay, right? In fact, I think it was probably a very good price to pay for UOB and OCBC shares, if there should be a 10% pullback from here. And at the current price, right, I think it's a fair price to pay for a wonderful business, because you are talking about 9-point-something times P ratio when the 5-year average is 11 times P ratio. So you're still paying at a P ratio that's below the 5-year average, right? So if we are not invested in the banks yet and we are feeling fearful, well, I think it's okay to buy some OCBC and UOB at the current point in time. But if you're already substantially invested like I am, then there is no urgency. There's no urgency that we can always wait. Right? So that's the banks. The other thing I want to talk about is evening with AK and friends. My friend Kenji at the Fifth Person told me that we could possibly get the venue next year in January. So when I have more information, I'll let you know. Right? So have a good weekend. Bye bye.